Victoria spoke to Rupert Lowe in his first TV interview since the police ended their investigation without charge. She began by asking him how he felt hearing that news.
Well, actually, the police finished their investigation quite quickly, and the file was then passed to the Crown Prosecution Service, and we were told that they're snowed under, so it took rather longer than we would have hoped to basically for justice to prevail. How do I feel? I feel fine. I mean, I felt fine because I knew that there was no veracity to any of the accusations. I mean, I'm a 67-year-old pensioner with a completely clean record. I've never committed a crime in my life that I've been convicted of. And I have been put through the mill on the back of 2 false statements. So, well, I think they're false statements. Again, the police didn't share those statements with us. I still don't quite know exactly what I was accused of. But the WhatsApp chains following it didn't support it. One of the witness statements didn't support it. And so, do I feel good? Yeah, I feel great, but I felt great because I knew I hadn't done anything.
The police said, "We've concluded there is insufficient evidence to provide a realistic prospect of conviction." Why do you say Reform contacted the police about you?
You'll have to ask them. I don't know why they contacted the police. I would not have done that.
Right, but you said in your statement yesterday it was a brutal smear campaign.
Well, Zia Yusuf and I had a robust conversation, which is good. That's what we're supposed to do in order to get at the truth. And he may be the chairman. I was an MP, and we were in Parliament. So we had a one-on-one robust conversation, which clearly, at the time, he didn't have any issues with. But 3 months later, he suddenly decided he did. So again, as I say, it's a bizarre situation, and it was supported by a statement, as I understand it, because the police wouldn't share the evidence with us. They're supposed to. You, if you're accused of something, are supposed to be able to answer to the police as to why what has been said is not true, but they didn't want to share it with my lawyers. So, look, I mean, it's not a satisfactory process, and the first thing that should happen is witness statements should be challenged. In answer to your question on why Reform did it, I guess what they were trying to do was politically assassinate me. This is my opinion and my surmising the situation. And what they did was they threw a whole load of vile accusations against me, one of which was that I had early onset dementia, which most people who know me know is completely untrue. But that all plays to the statements that were made, the questioning of my a sort of mind, and therefore the questioning of my ability to hold a gun license, which the police took away from me, both my shotgun and my firearms license, even though there was, I mean, I wasn't innocent till proven guilty. I was treated as if I was guilty till proven innocent.
But why?
So look, I mean, why did they do it? I think it was a political assassination attempt, and what they were doing is they were trying to make the story fit what they wanted it to fit.
Why?
And they threw this all together. Well, why? I don't know. I mean, as you probably know, Victoria, my social media became quite powerful, is quite powerful, and we're able to communicate directly with lots of people who have similar concerns about the way Britain's going, which I think is fantastic. But I think since Elon Musk came out and was complimentary about me and less complimentary about Nigel, the whole sort of my relationship, and that almost exacerbated the issue.
What does this have to do with Elon Musk?
I think Elon Musk hurt Nigel because Nigel thought he had this powerful relationship with the US, and when somebody very close to Trump said he definitively didn't think that Nigel Farage was the right person to lead Reform, that I think hurt him. And then when he was complimentary about what I was doing on Twitter, that hurt him too.
So are you saying...
So I think I was seen as a challenge, which I wasn't. I wasn't challenging Nigel. I was playing my part in driving support for Reform.
It sounds like you're suggesting that Nigel Farage politically assassinated you because he was jealous, because Elon Musk supported you, was a fan of you.
Well, Nigel has a history, if you watch throughout his career, of, you know, whether it's Kilroy Silk, whether it's, Wolf, whether it's Ben Habib. If people become, if you like, too tall a poppy, he tends to lop off the head of the poppy. So it's not as if it's new. That's the first thing to say. And I think you know, the companies I run, and I've run many, and I still am a shareholder and a owner of many, which, you know, I'm 67 now, so very often I'm now a non-exec rather than executive director. And I like to hire people who are more able than me. That's how you create success. I think what Nigel is running, and I think the core problem here, is I think Nigel's running a cult. That's what I've concluded, and I think it's the cult of Nigel. And anyone who basically has a different opinion is effectively expunged from being a threat to the cult. So, and there are many cultists who support him, and many people love him. I was very supportive of him, and if anything, I've made a mistake. I think he's done some very good things. I think he's a very good orator. I don't think he's all bad at all. But if you're going to reform a country, you have to have a plan. You have to have policies. You have to have structure. You have to have a shadow cabinet.
And these are some of the things.
Victoria, this is really important. You cannot do it with Nigel Farage, and then he's got a team of what I call very long-term, lightweight sort of servants, which is what you tend to find in a cult, whose idea of policy making is to sort of make it up down in the Marquis of Granby pub while you're having a few pints. Well, that's not how I operate. What we need a proper professional plan.
And that's what you said in an interview with the Daily Mail a couple of days before the report was made to the police about allegations.
Again, I wasn't rude about Nigel. I said he was the Messiah. I just said he's got some extremely good qualities.
And is there a link between that interview, do you think, and then what happened a couple of days later?
Without doubt. That the timing, if you look at all the timings, which, again, this is all now, and I'm not going to go into the detail because I have issued a 16-page letter before action. I will be taking legal action if they don't make an apology and pay my legal costs, because they have behaved extremely badly, in my opinion. But yes, the timing of the events, the delayed reporting of this so-called threat, whatever it was, by Zia Yusuf, which was 3 months after the event. He couldn't even remember the exact date. The WhatsApp chains following it don't suggest there was any issue other than a sort of debate about Great Yarmouth. So look, I mean, I've chaired public companies, and I've been in the city. I've run a football club. I've built stadiums. I've built up youth academies. I've done loads of stuff, and I honestly have never seen such an unprofessional chain of events in my life. So I am going to make sure those are either apologised for, or everybody's going to see it come out in court. That's what will happen.
Did you threaten violence towards the chairman of Reform, Zia Yusuf? Because, as you will know, the party says you were investigated by the police for making multiple threats to kill the chairman. The first was in December, the second in February. I've
just answered your question. We had a robust debate, and ultimately I'm 67. I've got a completely clean record.
Did you threaten to kill him?
I'm 67. He's 38. No.
As part of the police investigation against you, your gun licence was revoked. You've referred to that. A number of firearms were seized. Why?
I think that's now something which seems to be used against people, rather like, you know, the state uses tax investigations. So I think in this case, the Met told Gloucestershire Police that I was a high-risk gun holder, even though they hadn't challenged these.
High risk in what way?
Well,
that you would threaten to use them?
Because I was technically under, I'd had these two statements from the two that I'm aware of, from Anderson and Yusuf, making allegations that, as you've just said, that I threatened to kill him. This is my surmising, because we haven't actually been told what the charge was yet. Not that we will now, probably.
No.
But anyway, so the police contacted me on the Thursday, and I was rarely at home, and I had my farm meeting, and then I had a business meeting, so I couldn't. They asked me if I'd voluntarily hand my guns in. So I agreed with the Gloucestershire Police that I would finish my meetings. I was then in the Royal Box at Cheltenham on the Friday, and I would take them on Saturday to find a licence holder who had a shotgun and a firearms certificate, and put my guns with them. That was the agreement I had, using best endeavours, and it's all minuted by my secretary. But then, on the Friday night, we had an unannounced visitation from 4 armed police officers in 3 cars, of which we have on my CCTV, who turned up unannounced, so technically trespassing, drove down my 800-yard drive, and appeared at 9:30 in the evening, just as we were about to go, and I don't like to admit this, watch the BBC News. They came and they took all my guns away with some authority from the person in Gloucestershire, the Met having escalated it further.
Right.
So,
if someone goes to the police and says threats to kill have been made against another person, you must accept the police have a duty to investigate.
I think the police have a duty to ensure that that statement is correct before they start acting.
But in order to find out whether it's correct, they have to investigate.
In this country, Victoria, you're innocent till you're proven guilty.
Yeah.
And if you're a 67-year-old pensioner who has got a completely clean record and of honourably behaving towards his fellow man, you have to assume that there is a danger that the witness statement, particularly if it's politically motivated, is wrong. And I think they should challenge those statements before they start taking action against people who are innocent.
Understood.
And I was innocent, so I am on the warpath now. And not only was I innocent, but they leaked my name before they'd told my lawyers that they were going to investigate. This is the police. They then leaked publicly to the I think it was the Telegraph, that the file had gone to the CPS, which with an MP is normal.
Reform also said it had received separate evidence of serious bullying and derogatory remarks made by you about women in your office. And KC, Jacqueline Perry, hired by Reform, produced a report which concluded there is veracity in the complaints from both women, which amounts to credible evidence. Complaints of victimisation, constant criticisms, discriminatory behaviour do seem to amount to harassment on the part of Mr. Lowe.
My KC report rubbished her, and I can tell you, Victoria, it's completely untrue.
What do you now think of Nigel Farage?
Look, I don't dislike Nigel. I think he's running a cult.
You described him as a coward and a viper yesterday.
I think he is. I don't think he's fit to be leader. I don't think he is a leader. I think he's ultimately a very good what I would call ballroom entertainer. You know, he stands up and he entertains, and he's extremely good at that.
You said in your statement yesterday, for the good of our country, Nigel Farage must never be Prime Minister.
That is my opinion.
For the good of our country?
I think the way he has behaved towards me, if you gave him the power of the British state behind him, he has demonstrated that he is not fit to be wielding that power, and I don't think he should be Prime Minister. That is my opinion. And I'm perfectly entitled to my own opinion, and I'm sorry, but that's my view. I would have helped Nigel become Prime Minister, but I don't want to be next to Nigel, as I said in my interview in the Mail, if we haven't got a plan, policy, a structure, a shadow cabinet, and we're going to deliver for the people. Because I don't want to raise people's hopes for change and then dash them like Boris did. Boris had an 80-seat majority and he did nothing with it.
You have described in this interview Reform as a cult a number of times. They would say, don't be ridiculous. People are democratically electing us, and that's what they did a few Thursdays ago in mayoral elections, local elections, and that by-election in Runcorn.
I don't think people had a practical alternative but to vote for Reform in those elections.
So they're democratically elected?
If you wanted change, you had to vote for Reform. But what I think has to happen is we have to find an alternative for people to vote for something different that is more professional, that will deliver for the British people, and that will deliver the change that this country needs if it's to reform itself.
It wasn't that long ago you did want Nigel Farage to be Prime Minister.
I just said that.
Yeah.
I would have helped him do it.
Have you considered whether it's your judgment that might be the issue?
Of course, we all have to do that, but in this case I'm quite comfortable that it wasn't my judgment, and I would never have behaved towards any of them as they've behaved towards me. So
and you know
I can only judge, and I think you'd agree, if you judge by actions, actions are far more powerful than words. And I've watched their actions recently, and I don't like it. What
has been your lowest moment in the last few weeks and months?
I think having 4 armed police turn up at your house at 9:30 and leave at 1:45, having taken your guns when you know you've done nothing wrong, for a short period of time makes you think, is this fair? But I'm going to now try and understand why our leaders think this is okay, and I'm going to try and make sure we change it, which is what I'm able to do in Parliament.
You also said in your statement yesterday, there will very soon be an alternative to the rotten leadership of Reform. What are you planning?
I think we've got to find an alternative, as I just said to you, so that when when we end up, and then look, I haven't got a firm solution in my mind, but we need an alternative to the Reds and the Blues, and now the light blues, if you want to call them that. So
a new movement, a new party?
We need, no, not necessarily, but I think, you know, the most powerful instrument for change probably would be a reformed Tory party. But I don't see the Tory party at the moment as a functional party. But I don't rule out the Tories, and I get on very well with the Tories. By the way, there's some extremely good young Tories coming through.
So are you saying you
will
join the Tory party?
But you've got reform, you've got the option of a new party, that there's all sorts of things that could happen. So I haven't yet in my own mind worked out exactly what the best policy is, but trust me, as I said in that statement, I'm going to make sure there's an alternative. And if people think I'm going to pack up my tent and leave the field, they're very wrong.
Just so I'm clear, your choices, I think you're telling me, are you defect to the Tories.
I could join the Tories tomorrow if I wanted to. I don't have an issue with the Tories.
Okay, but you start a whole new...
I've just told you, Victoria, I don't think they're fit for purpose at the moment.
Sure. Or you could start a new movement or party.
Of course. I mean, the piece of paper is completely clean. And, you know, I've got, on my social media, I've got lots of people who'd like me to set up a new party and actually give them an opportunity to vote for something other than reform, other than the Tories, other than Labour.
Elon Musk has called for the release from jail of Stephen Yaxley Lennon, or Tommy Robinson. You have claimed that Tommy Robinson hasn't been given credit, as you put it, for raising the issue of grooming gangs. You do know he almost collapsed a trial for actual grooming gang perpetrators, which was why he was jailed.
Well, look, Tommy Robinson's a difficult issue. The issue for me with Tommy is that he was and has been right about the rise of Islamic sort of communities who don't integrate. That he's been right about, and they've taken over large parts of Britain in various areas, not just in one area. So he's absolutely right about that. Now, I've never come out and either been rude about him or been particularly praiseworthy of him. What I know, he has basically put his heart into raising this issue. He's in prison now for whatever he's in prison for. I thought it was because he showed a video that he was told he shouldn't show.
Yeah,
but that
was why
that's his issue.
That was contempt of court. He was jailed for almost collapsing a trial of grooming gang perpetrators.
That's his issue.
Now
Victoria,
he's in jail for something else.
What I've said about Tommy is that he deserves to be treated in the same way as every other person is treated in prison. There should not be a two-tier treatment of people in prison, in the same way that there shouldn't be a two-tier judiciary and there shouldn't be a two-tier policing system.
Okay, well,
we should all be equal under the law in totality.
Sure. He's been jailed for actual bodily harm, football brawling, using another man's passport, mortgage fraud, possession of drugs, threatening behaviour, contempt of court on multiple occasions. Would he be welcome in your new party?
I've not spoken to Tommy Robinson. I don't know the man, but all I've ever said is he's been right about the grooming gangs, and he deserves to be treated in the same way as all other prisoners. So that's really. I have nothing else to add than that.
Would he be welcome if you started?
I haven't even crossed that bridge, Victoria. It's a stupid question to ask because it's not relevant.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing you are going to be asked as an MP.
Well, you've asked it. I don't mind you asking it, but there's no answer to it because it's
yes or no.
It's not an opportunity that's arisen.
It's yes or no.
It's not an opportunity that's arisen. So I don't like ruling anything in or ruling anything out. It's unwise unless you have to.
Right.
And right now I don't have to make that decision because it's you asking me a purely sort of theoretical question.
One final question. You told the Daily Mail in March that you would put illegal immigrants and asylum seekers in, quote, a tented camp with a minimum amount of food. There are islands off the Scottish and English coast where they can be detained. Put them there and let the midges do the rest. Do you mean that?
I did say that.
Which islands?
I stand by my opinion, Victoria, which is that people who arrive here illegally should be detained and deported.
So which islands? Shetland,
hang on,
Skye?
They should be deported. People living here illegally should be detained and deported. I've said that people living here who had knowledge of their husband or one of their relations raping white English girls, working class English girls, they should be deported. I have not said that people living here legally should be deported, but I've also said that foreign criminals in our prisons should be deported, and I stand by all that.
Of course. What I'm asking you about is this. Which islands are you talking about? Isle of Wight?
They're given food.
Shetland?
Could be anywhere.
Skye?
Could be anywhere. The midges are better up north, but you know the Scottish may not like that. So you'd have to work it out. And if you're running the country, you'd have that opportunity. So no, come here illegally, Victoria. It shouldn't be a holiday camp.